let's get started. So let's do a quick revision of what we did yesterday first. So in yesterday's session, we continued with threat hunting in Sentinel. I talked about hunting queries, which really comes handy when you don't want to depend on analytics rule to generate incidents, and then you investigate those incidents to ensure that your environment is protected. It doesn't have any security misconfigurations, and you can reduce the attack vector surface area as much as possible. So hunting query really helps you to proactively hunt for threats, and whenever you find threats, you can use those hunting queries to investigate further. You can combine multiple hunting queries together, and you can also create an analytics rule from the hunting query so that the things will be automated in future. That is how we evolve an Azure Sentinel deployment for an organization, and it's an ongoing process. It continues in the same manner as long as you use Sentinel. So there is no one-time deployment and then you forget and then you bring this tool into operations. No, that is not like it happens. It is a continuous optimization that you will continue to do. So we will have hunting queries, we will have analytics rules. So we talked about hunting query. And then we talked about some administrative engineering task, admin engineering administrative task. And the first task was, how do I get rid of Sentinel? How do I remove Sentinel from a customer's environment? Or let's say you are currently doing this lab or POC or training for Sentinel. Once this is done, how will you remove Sentinel from your respective Azure subscription if you would like to continue with that subscription, because Sentinel will come expensive if you continue with it in your individual subscription, or it may go beyond your budget. So for that, we discussed about the process, that how do we remove Sentinel service from Azure subscription, and what all steps we basically need to do. Also, in the scenario wherein you have a shared workspace, then how do we get rid of that shared workspace, or how do we get rid of data sources which are specific to Sentinel? In a shared workspace, there could be a probability that you have log events which are being leveraged or used by other teams also. And you have configured table level retention, you have configured table level RBAC to specifically monitor the Sentinel events or Sentinel alerts, Sentinel logs. So for that, you will need to understand what we need to do. So you will basically need to ensure uninstalling Azure Monitor Agent or Log Analytics agent, Log Analytics Workspace agent from all the source machines or services within Azure and outside. You will need to uninstall Syslog Server, the Log Analytics Gateway, if there is any in the environment. You will also need to remove all the non-Microsoft custom data connectors. And if you are streaming data log sources from Sentinel to the external parties, for example, you are actually streaming Sentinel logs or Log Analytics Workspace logs from Log Analytics to a storage account or to an Azure Data Explorer via Event Hub. So in all these scenarios, you will need to make sure that you understand the building blocks of your environment and remove them one after another before you remove the Sentinel service. Once the Sentinel service is removed, Microsoft will initiate the process of removing all the metadata that Sentinel has stored. It will also proceed to remove all the analytics rules, all the hunting queries, all the solutions that you have installed from the Content Hub. So it will basically go ahead and do its job within 48 hours. It will be deleting everything, and then within 30 days, it will be completely deleted. There is no point of return. That's what we discussed yesterday. We also talked about backup and disaster recovery of Sentinel, and I explained in detail that how backup and disaster recovery for Sentinel happens, not directly, not using a traditional method, but there is a workaround for it, which is to go with multi-homing and create a separate workspace in a separate region and ingest logs into that workspace. And whenever your primary workspace goes down, you can use those logs to connect to Sentinel service and use it. However, this may not be required because it's a fully managed, highly available SaaS service from Microsoft, and Microsoft manages the availability and failover for the service. So that's what we discussed. And then we moved on to the respond part, remediate part, the automation part in Sentinel. And we looked at how using Sentinel I can, while I'm investigating a security incident, what all capabilities I have available to remediate. When I say remediate, to resolve it, and while I resolve it, what all automation capabilities are available. Automation capabilities are part of SOAR capability. So SOAR is Security Orchestration, Automation, and Remediation. So those SOAR capabilities to Sentinel are powered by playbooks, and playbook is actually nothing but a logic app in Microsoft Azure terminology. So logic app is a workflow management service that basically lets you create runbooks or playbooks, and using those runbooks or playbooks, you can integrate them with your incident, with your analytics tool, with your hunting query, and you can also assign them access to your incident responders, your team members, who will then use those playbooks to remediate or automate or perform an automated action while they investigate an incident. So that's what we discussed. And then we looked at the very basic functionality of Logic App with services other than Sentinel like virtual machine, and we saw that what all capabilities are available using Logic App for a virtual machine to automate. So we basically configured automated start-stop operations for a virtual machine by defining the parameters in terms of how frequently it should happen, at what time and what time zone it should happen. So that's what we did. And then we moved on, and then we looked into Microsoft Sentinel portal, and we looked at the automation view, and we looked at various automation capabilities. So when it comes to Microsoft Sentinel dashboard, we have an option under configuration that says automation. And in this option, you will see all your automation rules basically. So all the automation rules are shown here. All the active playbooks that we are using, the Logic App playbooks are shown here, and the playbook templates are also available. Now the templates that you see here, these templates are typically part of the solutions that you have installed from the Content Hub. So if you want more templates, you will need to install the solutions accordingly. Otherwise, you will not see all the templates. So these are the three options that you see here. Now, where do we configure all of it, and what are the automation capabilities? So when it comes to automation, when we navigate to an analytics rule is the engine that powers Sentinel, because that basically gives Sentinel the capability to view alerts, events, and when an alert or event satisfies a query or the condition in the analytics rule, it basically creates the incident from that alert or event. So when we navigate to an analytics rule, we have the fourth tab which says automated response. On this automated response, this is where we will put the automation. Now, there are multiple probabilities here when it comes to automating the remediation of a security incident using Sentinel, or when it comes to automating a specific event in Sentinel, this is where we configure everything. So, for example, we have how do we configure automation? So we will always click on Add New. And here we will provide the automation rule name. Let's say sample automation. We will select when this automation will trigger. So we will select the condition if required. The default condition is that the automation will trigger when the incident is created. So when this analytics rule creates an incident, which is the third tab, incident setting, I will say the automation rule will only trigger when the incident is created. So automation rule has a high dependency on the incident. When the incident is created, the automation rule will trigger. And when the automation rule will trigger, what action it will take. Those actions will define the properties for the automation rule or the capabilities for the automation rule. So we talked about these actions. So my first action is change status. I can change the status of the incident. Whatever is the primary status of the incidents, which is always new, I can change the status from new to active, so that I am not defaulting on my initial response SLA. Every organization has an SLA in terms of incident management. Even it is your internal incident management or a third party that is managing security operations for you, you must have an SLA defined. And as per the SLA, there has to be a time frame within which an incident has to be picked up, the initial response time, and then comes the resolution time. So we'll use automation to automate the initial response time, that all my incidents are getting picked up as soon as they are generated. We can add additional options, additional actions, which are, you can have multiple actions in an automation rule. You can create multiple automation rules with one action in each automation rule, or you can have multiple actions incorporated in the same automation rule. We can change the severity of the incident also. Now that the incident has been picked up, we do not need to keep it at high. We can change the severity as medium. Then comes another action, which is I can also assign owner. Obviously, if I'm changing the status of the incident as active, and if I'm lowering the severity, there has to be an owner assigned to the incident. So if I know the incident type, the incident is related to databases, it is related to Azure portal, it is related to compute services, it is related to networking services, I will have security groups created for the services, or I can also assign it to an individual. So I can assign an owner from the drop down. I can select the user who I want this incident to be assigned to. So let's say this incident is related to the Azure portal. I would have a security group with Azure AD admin created. I would assign this incident to that security group. For now, I'm assigning it to SOC operations. So we have looked at change status, change severity, assign owner. Then we also have an option that says add task to an incident. I can also add task to an incident. Task basically means that I will provide certain information to the owner of the incident or to whosoever this incident is assigned to. Task could also mean a reference to an SOP. So, for example, this analytics rule is basically Azure portal brute force attack. Now, in this type of incident, we have a set. We can identify a set sequence of tasks that we will need to perform. So, for example, this is an analytics. This is a failure on Azure. I would say Azure portal brute force attack. So my steps could be, give me a moment. These steps could be that I would like to connect with the manager of the user. So brute force attack is triggered. In the incident, I will be able to see the UPN, the account. Under entities, I will be able to see the username. Now I will probably connect with the manager of the user to inform him about this incident and request the manager to connect with the user and identify whether this activity was intended or it was unintended. So basically, there will be a sequence of steps that I will perform, which is known as standard operating procedure. I can also add those standard operating procedure to the incident. How? I will select add task, and here I will put the task title. Now I will put the task title as steps to be followed steps to be followed by the engineer or by the assigned engineer or assigned team member, whatever you want to type. So steps to be followed, then I will type the description. Add description here. I'll type the description that as soon as you pick up this incident, kindly follow the following steps. First step, identify the identity which is compromised. Second, look for identity manager and establish a communication with the manager. Find out if this activity was intended. Provide guidance to manager or affected user for future reference. These are the steps. Also, following URL containing the SOP can be referenced. Okay, so this is how you can add a task to the incident also by providing all the instructions, by providing a reference to any SOP that you follow in the organization for that specific incident. This will help the engineer to uh, efficiently handle or remediate or resolve this incident. So we can also include the task like this. So we can include the task. Now, what are my additional options in the action? So I have taken care of change status, change severity, assign owner. I can also add tags here. So I can add a tag to this incident. Uh, tags will be or tags will be created beforehand. You will just need to add that tag. Tag is typically, I would say, some specific instruction or some specific keyword or key pointer that will help the admin team to pick up to basically search for information. So tagging is same in Azure. Uh, so you have a service in Azure with the name tags, and that service is available to most of the Azure resources. When you provision resources in Azure, you can add tags to those resources, and those tags basically helps you to identify those resources. So here's the tagging service. This is the tags. So here you can create the tags and you can use those tags also. So we can also add tags, and then there is one more action. So we are done with status, severity, owner, tags, task, and then the last one is run playbook. We can also run playbook. So playbook is typically an automated action in the form of logic app, in the form of a workflow management that has been configured. We can select the playbook. So we have multiple playbooks here. We can also select the playbook that needs to be run. So let's say I also want to send an email to somebody, to the admin team or to somebody, and there's a playbook available for it. For example, email alert. So I can also select this playbook. And then in the end, rule expiration. That this automation rule, when will it expire? So I will keep it indefinite, which means it will never expire. This rule will always be there, integrated with this analytics rule. Whenever an incident is generated, this rule will trigger, and all the actions which are mentioned in this rule will get performed in the same manner, in the same order they are configured. So the very first thing that will happen is the status of the incident will be changed from new to active. Then the severity will be changed from high to medium. Then the owner will be assigned. After that, a task will be added to the incident. And then in the end, an email will also be sent. This is what I'm doing. And then the order. If there are multiple automation tasks which are there for an incident, then you will need to define the order in which they will run. So you can define the order that this will run at first and then the other will run. So you will define the order. Once you define the order, then you will hit apply. You've not added the tab, so you will delete. Then you will hit apply and it will be added. So what is my best practice when it comes to automation rule? My best practice when it comes to automation rule is to create minimum automation rules. So you should not create multiple automation rules with one task in each rule. That will unnecessarily increase the administrative overhead. You should rather create one automation rule with multiple actions inside it. That is the right approach. And the benefit of doing this is that when you navigate to your automation rules window, you will see low number of automation rules. Because if you create multiple automation rules, all automation rules will be shown here in this window. These are all automation rules that I have. Now, if I have multiple automation rules, I will see all of them here, and then the challenge is that the administrative overhead will increase. Now, at the same time, while you look at automation rule, you can also see that which analytics rule this automation rule is associated to. So, for example, this automation rule, which is block Azure AD automation rule, this automation rule, which is automation rule for brute force attack, both the automation rules, and in fact, the one that I've just created, disable the user, these automation rules are basically assigned to the same analytics rule. So brute force Azure, sorry, these two automation rules are assigned to the same analytics rule, Azure portal brute force attack. Now, if I create multiple automation rules here, then it will become a cumbersome, effort for me. So I would rather have one automation rule with multiple actions inside. However, if you feel that there are some common playbooks that I have configured in the environment, which is to send an email, which is to perform some automated remediation, in that case, I can have two automation rules. One which is specific to that incident, the other which is coming from a common logic app. So not more than two in any case, because in a production environment, you will have hundreds of analytics rules, more than 100 analytics rules. Analytics rule is directly related to the use cases. And I'm saying if you ask from my experience, the smallest medium enterprise, I'm saying the smallest a small scale customer also has at least 70 to 80 analytics rules, 70 to 80 use cases that they are basically using in Sentinel to to basically manage the security operations. And any large scale customer may have close to 100, 200 automation rules also. So I'm saying analytics rule also. So if there are 100 plus analytics rule, and if you create multiple automation rules for each analytics rule, imagine the administrative overhead that you may have. So the best practice is to reduce the automation rules and add multiple actions inside an automation rule. Where you can see your automation rules, this is the place in the Sentinel dashboard under configuration. You see an automation option. Here you see all the automation rules. And when you look at an automation rule, it shows you the trigger that when this rule will run. So this automation rule will run when the incident is created. Then you have another information which is analytics rule, that which analytics rule this automation rule is associated with. So you see the analytics rule to which automation rule is actually associated with. You will see the action also, that what all actions are there in a specific automation rule. Now you can see that here I'm using the best practice, which is in the same automation rule, I am using multiple action, which is change status, assign owner, change severity, run playbook. So I'm using multiple actions here, which is the right approach, which is the best practice. I can also see the expiration date for this automation rule, which is indefinite. I can also see who created this automation rule, the rule creation time, who modified this automation rule the last time, and when was it modified, and the status of this automation rule. So automation is very important when it comes to security operations, because you may have limited number of resources in your operations team, and you will need to make sure that every minute incident or event or alert is discovered, picked up, investigated properly, and remediated. You cannot afford to avoid it, overlook it, because it's a security monitoring, not infrastructure monitoring, wherein if there is a virtual machine which is running with high CPU and memory consumption, and if you overlook it, what will happen at the max? The machine will reboot, the application will experience performance issues, and you will get notified and you will fix it. So you will not have any higher impact. However, if you overlook an incident, and if that incident is related to a brute force attack, there could be a huge impact in the environment. If an identity is compromised, an incident is generated against it, and you overlook that incident, you ignore it, probably that identity could relate to the admin also. And if the admin identity is compromised, probably the very next moment you will see everything getting deleted by whosoever has compromised that identity. So in security operations, you cannot afford to overlook, ignore an incident. And that is why it is very important to understand the automation concept for any, any SIEM solution that you are using. Use automation as much as possible. Okay, so this is about automation rules, and you can see that I have multiple automations rules created here. Now you can also see, along with automation rules, you can also see enabled rules. Enabled rules basically means, I'm saying with automation rules, so there are 9 automation rules. You can create an automation rule today, but probably not enable it. Similar to an analytics rule that create it but don't enable it. You will enable it when it is needed. So right now 9 automation rules are there, and all of them are enabled. And there are 5 playbooks which are part of these automation rules. So 5 playbooks are being referenced out here. That is what it shows. If you look at the active playbooks, these are my active playbooks which are part of these automation rules. One of the automation rules is basically using these playbooks. And this is the playbook template. If you want to create one more playbook, you can create it from this template. You have template also. So this is about automation. Now, automation, as I said, is very important, which also means that you need to know the health of your automation rules, whether all the enabled automation rules are working properly, whether there are issues with the automation rule. So you need to know it. So you need to know the health of your analytics rule, automation rules, health of your workspace, health of Microsoft Sentinel service. And for all of these capabilities, you don't need to run KQL queries now. You have workbooks available. Default out of the box workbooks available by Microsoft. And here is the automation health workbook. So on the top, you can click on automation health workbook, and this automation health workbook will quickly show you the health of automation rules. You can see it says the workbook is utilizing Sentinel Health and Azure Diagnostic Tables. Please make sure to enable. So basically this workbook is using the information which is available in Sentinel Health Table and Azure Diagnostic Table, which means that for this workbook to run efficiently, effectively, you need to make sure that those two tables are working properly. Those two tables are receiving events and alerts, are log events. So this is what you need to ensure. And here is the health of automation rule. You can see it says some queries returned, no results. It says top 5 or top 5 failed automation rules. There has nothing which has failed actually in terms of automation. So it says no results. Top 5 playbooks on demand, no result. Automation rules by type. Here you see automation rules by type playbook, and you see playbooks. There are 2 playbooks. There are 309 automation rules. All of this information you see here. So this is where you can get all the information about automation rule, or the Sentinel Health and Analytics workbook that I shared yesterday that also contains a place wherein you can see automation health also. So either you see it from here or you can see it from the other place. Okay, so this is about automation rule. Now what we need to do, we already have created the automation rule yesterday, and I've shown you the capability of automation rule. Now today I want you all to create one automation rule in your respective lab environment and see it functioning from end to end. This is the lab exercise that I want each one of you to do. So let's understand the use case. We'll pick up the same use case that we have configured in our Sentinel. So we've reviewed the topics covered in the previous session. We will resume with Logic App Playbook topic and demo some more automation capabilities of Sentinel, and then we will continue. So let's do a hands-on lab. So my lab is that I intend to automatically disable the Azure AD user whenever a brute force attack on Azure portal is notified to a Microsoft Sentinel incident. This is what I want. This is my objective, is that I want to automatically disable the user. Why I want to automatically disable the user? Because if the user is disabled, no further brute force attack will trigger from that user. And if that user tries to sign in once again to Azure portal, for that I have another analytics rule available, which is attempts to sign in from a disabled user. So I will always know whether that user continues to trigger brute force attack or that brute force attack is remediated as soon as the user is disabled. So this is the lab that I want to do when I intend to automatically disable the Azure AD user. Now, what do I have? I have an analytics rule configured to generate incident It will generate only one incident because we are grouping the errors. So I have an analytics rule configured to generate an incident whenever there is a brute force attack on Azure portal. This is what I have. And brute force attack here means that an Azure AD user or multiple users attempts to sign in to Azure AD, or let's say to Azure portal, attempts to sign into Azure portal using incorrect credentials from different locations in a short span of time. This is what constitutes a brute force attack. So this is the definition of brute force attack, because you will see multiple definitions. The universal definition for a brute force attack is that there has to be multiple failed sign-in followed by a successful sign-in within a specific interval of time. That's what universal definition is. But I don't want to go with what universe says. I also have that configured in my environment, but I want to go a step ahead. I also want to configure an incident or an analytics rule that generates an incident, even though there is no successful attempt. Even if there are failed attempts, I would still want it to consider a brute force attack and generate an incident, because there is a high probability that today they are not able to sign in. Tomorrow they may, with using more combinations of password. So I want to stop it today itself. And how can I stop it? By disabling the user, by identifying the source of the attack, by creating an appropriate conditional access policy. Okay, so this is what I basically want to do. So this is my intention, is lab objective. And this is what I have. So let's go ahead and do it. Now, what will be the final outcome? You can also write like this. And see, for all the use cases that you put together, you always write these statements and you store them into the SOP. So my outcome will be the affected identity will be identified and will be disabled temporarily in Azure AD. The manager will be notified. The source IP address will also be added to named location, which is blacklisted location under a conditional access policy. This is the outcome. So the identity will be identified. It will be disabled temporarily in Azure. The manager will be notified, and the source IP with which that brute force attack was getting triggered, it will be added to named location list in Azure AD conditional access, so that conditional access policy will further stop all the incoming requests from that IP address. So that way I can remediate this incident by disabling the user and then informing the manager to take appropriate action to find out what went wrong, if this intended or not. And at the same time, to stop this activity in future, I can add that source IP to the named location list, which is the blacklisted location, so that going forward, if this user or some other user or anybody else trying to connect to my Azure portal from the same source IP, it will be disabled by conditional access itself. So conditional access policy will actually disable it. So this is my lab objective. This is what I have, and this is the outcome that I expect. And in the same outcome, I'm saying this is my lab objective that I want to automatically disable the user. And I can say that other than this, I also want to automate some additional actions, that is assign the incident to an Azure AD admin security group, change the severity of the incident to medium, change the status of the incident to active, add task to the incident, etc. And send an email to the competent authority. This is my objective. So this is what we are going to do in the lab today, which will be our last and final use case for automation. And then, as I said, the more you practice, the more you will understand, the more competency you will get. I've already shared resources, the GitHub repository where all the automation playbooks are available. Other than this, most of the solutions available in Content Hub, they also have automation playbooks available. So first, look for automation playbooks inside the solution itself. If the expected playbook is not available and you need certain references, then go to the GitHub repository for Microsoft Sentinel. There you will find all the playbooks. Do not try and research on third-party websites. You may get some malicious code configured in your playbook that you will take it from there, configure in the playbook, and probably, the incident or some unwanted action may get triggered also. So don't use any third-party website. Use the Azure, GitHub repository for Microsoft Sentinel for finding hunting queries, analytics rule, for playbooks, or for any assistance that you need, or look for Microsoft Sentinel documentation, or look for the solutions, which are there in the Content Hub. You will find hunting queries, analytics rule, playbooks, and workbooks as part of the solution also. So that's what we need to do. So let's just get started with it. Since I already have it configured in my environment, I would want a volunteer to share the screen so that I can provide instructions in terms of how do we do it from scratch, how do we achieve this objective, and how do we get this outcome. And I want each one of the participants in your respective lab environment to build this use case from scratch so that you understand the beauty of automation here. So I'll stop sharing. Who's sharing the screen? All right. Who is sharing the screen? The screen now. Major is sharing the screen. Okay, I can see your screen. Great. Let's go ahead. So let's first see whether you have things in place. So first of all, do we have an analytics rule for Azure brute force, Azure portal brute force attack measure? The one that we
Yes, yes, we
bring up
have.
the training days. Okay, can you show me? Okay. Um, Great. Did this rule ever generate an alert, an incident
Yes,
in the
yes,
past?
it has. Yeah.
Great. Let's go back to the home page of Microsoft Sentinel. I want to see that incident. Okay. Look for the incident of the last 30 days, and then you will find the incident. Last 30 days. Now search for Azure portal. Type Azure portal. That's it. Search for it. Okay, great. So I can see three incidents. I'm saying I can see one incident, brute force attack against Azure portal. That brute force attack against Azure portal is the default rule, which is there in the Azure AD solution, Azure Active Directory solution. And the second one, which says brute force attack on Azure portal, is the custom analytics rule that we have created. So now this is for all the participant. The first analytics rule that says brute force attack against Azure portal. The logic of this rule is that when there is multiple failure attacks, failures, sign-in attempts succeeded by, followed by a successful. It is in the description, it itself says, it says that there will be default failure count is 10 and default time is 20 minutes. So it basically means that if somebody tries to log into Azure portal continuously and fails 10 times in a row, and at the 11th incident, the person is successful, it will be counted at brute force attack, which means success has to be there. If there is no success, this rule will not consider it a brute force attack, which is where the shortcoming of this rule is. Why would it not consider a brute force attack? If some thief comes at my door in the at 2 o'clock midnight and tries to break the lock, and they are not successful and they go back, will I not consider this an incident? I will still consider this an incident. I will try to find out from the CCTV footage who those people were, where did they come from, whether they were able to successfully break the lock or they not. I would still want to investigate. It is not that they are able to break into my home, they steal my valuable, my money and jewelry and everything. Then only I will consider this an incident and I will report it to the competent authorities. No, I will still report it even if they are not successful. And that is where my second use case is, second analytics rule is, wherein in the analytics rule, and I am also expanding this analytics rule to multiple locations, considering what happens today. In today's age, where you have bots available, hackers would use bot to affect the network. They will deploy bot across the network in multiple geographies, and then they will trigger or instruct the bots to perform an action. So that even if that action is caught, even if that action is interpreted or investigated, hacker will not be traced because it's a bot. At the max, the company will be able to trace the source IP. Source IP belongs to another company. And then when they investigate further, they'll find out that the company was also got compromised. So they will never be able to reach to the actual person who initiated that attack. So that is where both the rules are important. And second one is more important than the first one because it tells me whenever there are failed attempts also. So I will focus on the second rule, the one that I have created custom rule, because I'm creating this. So this is my second rule, and because of second rule, I can see that an incident was also generated, which made me believe that this rule was configured properly. So I'm good with this. Now let's go ahead and prepare this. So let's open a notepad. Now this is how we need to prepare for it. The first thing that I need, since this is about, now this is in this automation logic, what I will be doing, I will be connecting with Azure AD. See, if I want a user to be disabled, where will I disable the user? In Azure AD. So which means I will be authenticating to Azure AD. And who has the capability to disable the user? A security admin or a global admin. So what I'm looking for, I need an account in Azure AD with security admin or global admin privileges. That's my prerequisite. So I need an account with global admin or security admin privileges. The other thing is I cannot use my account admin account. It is not allowed. You will need to identify a separate account for it. So, Mijun, do I have an account in your Azure AD? Do you have an account in Azure AD which has this privilege?
Yes.
Okay, let's check. Which account are you considering?
So for the disablement or
No, not the account that will trigger simulate the attack. The account that will be used to disable the user.
okay, we can use this one.
Major test.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see whether this account is active or not? Click on this account. Okay, the account is active. Look for the permission of this account. And to your left under manage, it says assign roles. Look for the assign rules on Active Directory. Okay, it's a global reader. So this account cannot work. Assign global admin permissions to it. Add assignment. We'll do preparation in such a manner that the rule will work on the very first instance. Otherwise, what happens, you create a rule, it fails, and then you get into the troubleshooting and you spend a lot of time. So that is where preparation is the key to success. Okay, add this role to the user and remove the other role. You don't want a user to have both global admin and reader permission. This is against the security best practice, or this is like creating junk in the environment. Okay, let's validate. Let's refresh the screen. Maybe you can refresh the portal. That way it will go. No, once you have assigned, once you've removed it, just refresh. Great. So we have a user with global administrative role or security admin role, or click on add assignment once again. You can also use the least privilege principle. Click on add assignment and type user there in the search. Scroll it down. Scroll it down. User administrator. This role can also be used. Using this role, because this role can manage all aspects of a user and group, including reset password for limited admins. So this role can also be used. Okay, great, close it. So now let's make a note of it. Let's go back to the user. Copy the user UPN because you will need it. Overview. And copy the UPN. And I hope you remember the password for this user.
Yeah, I have it saved. I'll refer to it.
Okay, great. All right, so we have a user account with appropriate access on Azure AD that will be used to basically disable the user. We are good. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to the rule now. Now we will enable the rule. So we have a playbook available in Azure AD. We can also write this playbook from scratch, but the playbook is already available in Azure AD, and I'll show you how that playbook works. So let's go to Azure AD solution now in the Content Hub. And then why? And then let's do one thing. Okay, we can do that later. You already have an incident. We also need to trigger the incident. We don't want to depend on the incident that was created last week. Now identify one more user who will simulate the attack. Which user will simulate the attack?
We can use this one.
Okay, copy the UPN of this user also. Great. Note it. You can just put a note that this is your attacker. Okay, great. Now, do you have a virtual machine?
Yes.
Okay, great. Why don't you do one thing? Why don't you just copy this user instead of using the virtual machine? Just copy this user in the chat window, the attack user, the one that will simulate the attack in the chat window. Okay, now, Quinton, my friend from Australia. Quinton, why don't you use this user ID, open an incognito window in private browsing mode, try to sign into Azure portal with this user ID and type any password of your choice. I just want some failure, attempts to sign into Azure portal from this user ID. And Mijun, from your screen, you also open an incognito mode window and try to sign in using this user with an incorrect password so that we can simulate this attack. And by the time we are done with creating the rule, we would have this log from Azure AD ingested into workspace connected to Sentinel so that we can validate it also. So right now, guys, what we are trying to do, we are trying to simulate the attack also. Okay, type a password of your choice, whatever you want to wish. Okay, one attempt. Make at least 5 attempts. Second attempt. Third attempt. Fourth attempt. Great. So you're done with 5 attempts. Quinton, please, you also go ahead and sign in with this user and make at least 5 unsuccessful logging attempts to Azure portal with this user. Okay, great. Now let's go back and create the automation runbook. So let's go to the solution, which is Azure Active Directory solution. Hit manage. And in this solution, you will need to just wait and type playbook or type block only. Type block, and you will see all the 3 playbooks here. So we are focusing on the playbook, which is block Azure AD user incident, because I want to use this playbook. So click on this playbook, right click on it, and then click on configuration. Remember, the playbook that I'm using is Azure AD block Azure AD user incident. Okay, so this is my playbook. Now, when you click on configure, the playbook will be shown under automation. Now you will need to select the playbook and scroll it down to your right. The other one, yeah. And you will need to create this playbook. So when I'm creating this playbook, I'm actually creating a logic app in the backend. So you can see now we are creating a playbook, and what we are doing, we are creating a logic app here. So let's select the resource group, region, playbook name, and scroll it down. If you want to enable diagnostic of this playbook, now, as I said, you have a diagnostic workbook in Azure in Sentinel that gives you the health of various services. So definitely it will only tell you the health when logs from that service is being sent. So what we will do here, we will select the same log analytics workspace, which is connected to my Sentinel, so that the logs related to this workbook will go into that workspace only. Okay, great. Then go to connection. Now this playbook has 3 capabilities. What those 3 capabilities are? First, this playbook has the capability to interact with Azure AD using a credential that has permission on Azure AD to perform an action. That's the first capability that this playbook has. The second capability this playbook has is to interact with Microsoft Sentinel. And the third capability this playbook has is to interact with an email account to send email. These are the three capabilities of the playbook. And we will need to configure it basically, because if you want this playbook to be able to disable a user, you will need to configure Azure AD. If you want this playbook to be connect with Microsoft Sentinel, you will need to configure the second authentication. So you will need to create a connection so that using these connections, the logic app will be able to interact with these SaaS services. Azure AD is a SaaS service. Microsoft Sentinel is a SaaS service. Office 365 is a SaaS service. So we will do that later on in the subsequent steps, not right now, not here. Click on review and create. Okay. Now, when you click on create and continue to designer, it is now directly taking you to logic app designer. So click on create and continue to designer. So it will first create this logic app, create this playbook in the form of a logic app, and then it will directly redirect you to the logic app and on the designer page. This is what it will do. So playbook is nothing but a logic app in the backend. Logic app is the SOAR capability of Sentinel. Okay, now we are in the playbook. Mijun, can you zoom out the font? It is too big actually. Okay, all right. Now this is where you are on the logic app designer. This is where you need to configure the instructions. This is where you need to configure everything. Okay. Now, before we configure this, first we will need this logic app to authenticate with the SaaS services that it needs to work with. So under development tools, there is an option that says API connection. I want you to click on that option, API connection.
Shall I click OK?
Yep, click OK. Go to API connection. And now we will need to select these connections and authorize our logic app to these services, because logic app is a separate service. Azure AD is a separate service. Sentinel is a separate service. Office 365 is a separate service. We are dealing with 4 services here. All of these services will interact using API calls. It's API calls in the backend that it uses. So first, we'll configure the first one on the top, which is block Azure AD user incident. First API authorization. Now here you will see it also. You can see in the description, it says API connections are used to connect logic apps to SaaS services. So Office 365, Azure AD, Sentinel, they are all SaaS services. So we will use API connections to connect this logic app. Now over here, scroll it down, click on edit API connection. And this is where you will need to authorize. So here it says authorize. Click on authorize. Now it will ask you the credentials of an account in Azure AD that has the permission to disable the user. And this is where you will use the above credential, the one that you have used. Okay, you can see, okay, security defaults are enabled, use a different account. You will need to click next and configure the authenticator for it also. You have no option that 14 days, or there is another option. And if you want to disable it, just different method. Yep, you can use different method. Choose method, phone. and select the option to remember this account so that it will not be asked again and again. Okay, done. Okay. Now see this Azure AD, I'm saying Logic App will need permission on this account to perform these activities. So definitely this is an intended. So yes, provide the consent. Accept it. And once this is authenticated, is this authenticated? Yep, authorization was successful. You can see on the top. Now please save your changes. So this part is done. Now the second part. Once this is saved, go back to the second one. Second API. Now the Sentinel API we don't need. Why we don't need it? Because we'll directly configure this playbook. We will directly integrate this playbook into the Sentinel console in the analytics room. So we don't need connection with the Sentinel. But if you intend to send an email, then you will need to create an Office 365 connection also. So let's create an Office 365 connection also. Click Edit API connection. What it does, it by default uses the same email address that you're using. Okay, now click on Authorize. Now over here, the account that you will provide, the account must have a valid mailbox associated to it. A. Second, it has to be work or school account, which means you cannot use your personal account, which is mijunchaku@outlook.com. If you use it, it's your personal account. Azure, I'm saying it will not be accepted by the Logic App. So Logic App needs a work or school account and an account that has a mailbox associated with it. Now, if you use this account Mijun test, this account does not have a mailbox associated with it because you don't have M365 mailbox for this account. So authorization will happen. It will be successful. However, emails will not be sent. You will get an error that this account does not have a valid mailbox associated with it. So understand the process when you are doing it in production. You will be choosing an account that has the capability to send email, and it has to be an official account, corporate account, work or school account. So select your account, the one that you are highlighted, just for this, just to see the option, and click on, and when you see authorization was successful, now save the change, and then you will get an error. Okay, great. And see the error. Now, this error clearly says that this account does not have a mail server. Basically, the account that you have just used to authenticate to Office 365 does not have a valid mailbox. So when you are configuring this Logic App in a production environment, please make sure to select an account which has the capability, which has a mailbox associated with it, which has the capability to send email. Okay, great. So we are good with this. Now we are done. This is the this is the API connection that we needed to make. Now we'll go back to the Logic App Designer and we will design this Logic App. So Logic App Designer is the tool where you will design the Logic App, where you will configure the workflow, that what will happen. Okay, now look at now start with these are all workflows that you see. You see those bars, those are workflows. So click on Microsoft Sentinel Incident Preview. That is your first workflow. Now, when you click on this workflow, it says no additional information is needed for this step. No additional information is needed because this is already configured. Then go to entities. Now, this is where it all starts. So this workbook, I'm sorry, this playbook, what is the objective of this playbook? To disable the user. Which user it will disable? How will this playbook know that I need to disable this user? So this playbook basically needs to read the incident. Inside the incident, you will have the UPN of the user, right? That's what it has to be there. Now, can you go to the other tab, Mejun, and go back to the analytics rule? The same analytics rule. Yeah, go to the analytics rule. I did. Next, set rule logic. Now click on entities here. So what this incident will return? This incident will return this information, right? Now you can see in the name, it says name and then ID. And what is this ID? Go on the query and see what ID field contains in the query. So you can see ID field contains user principal name, which basically means that now go down, which basically means that inside the account entity, the UPN will be stored. And we exactly need the UPN, we exactly need the name of the user or the UPN of the, see, name could be common. Two users can have the same name, but UPN is unique, user principal name. So this logic app will basically need to know which user it needs to disable. And for that, it will need to get the information from the incident, which is the UPN. Now go back to the first tab where you're configuring the designer. So this is where exactly we are adding entities, and now click on for each. The third one, the third option. And here you will see accounts and then click on update user, disable user. And here you will need to select the under name. You will need to close this. I've said delete this. And here, yep, delete it. And now select the account name. So what you are telling the logic app that you go to the entities, whichever entities are there in the incident, pick those entities, then go to the account entity and pick up the account name of that activity, account name of that entity, and account name basically contains the UPN of the user. Okay, so select the account name. That's it. Once you select it, it will automatically go away. Okay. Now it is not going away. So delete it and then select it once, it will go away. Now select it once, account name. Okay, click left and right somewhere on the portal. That should go away. Okay, it is gone away. All right. Now the account name you have picked up, it says display name, given name, nickname. I'm saying all of this will come from the account name. If for that user in the Azure Active Directory, you have configured all of these fields like display name of the user, given name, mail, nickname, name, whatever you have configured will come here. It will automatically come here. Now scroll it down. On the same screen, you will need to do the authentication once again, because this is where this user will be disabled. So click on change connection here on the screen and select the same Azure AD account that has the privilege. Click on add new and select the same Azure AD account which has the privilege to disable the user. So you will need to do the authentication twice, once for the API and the other for this specific instruction. Yep, stay signing. Okay. Failed. The browser is closed. Please sign in again. Since you're doing it on a incognito, why it is happening. So you will need to perform this step in the actual browser. Okay, once again, those who are not able to follow it, what we need to do, we need to go to the third option, third bar, which is for each. Here, no, not here. Here you will need to click on Update User tab, Update User, Disable User. Here you will need to remove this concatenation and select the account name, because I want UPN to be displayed, because UPN contains the username. So account name, that's it. And on the same, you will need to connect change connection. And here you will need to select the user. So add new and select the user that has the permission to disable the user. Okay, wait, it will automatically say that it is authenticated. Scroll it down and says it is added. It is connected to this account. Great. Now scroll it down. I'll show you the other part of this logic app. So what is happening here? We are done with disabling the user till this point. Now, if you remember that we also have configured the email option. So what it will do, other than disabling the user, it will also see whether the user has a manager field enabled. If user has a manager, then it will also send an email to the manager using the connection that you have created in the API connection. So click on condition once again, the fourth tab here. Yeah. Now scroll it down, or scroll it down, scroll it down, scroll it down. And here you see the condition that says if user have manager, click on that condition. Okay, scroll it down. Now, if user have manager, then the user principal name of the manager will come here. Scroll it down. Can you zoom out? I will say typically the entire logic app comes on the same screen. Zoom in, yeah, zoom out more. Okay, great. Now over here it says get user details, add comments to incident with manager, no admin, send an email to manager. So click on send an email to manager. And this is where you can see an email will go to the manager. However, in this case, it will not go. Why? Because you can see there is an error. It says, please check your account info, because the email ID that Mejun is using to send the email is not a work or school account. It does not have a mailbox associated with it. So that is why email will not go. But in a production environment, when you have authenticated with a work or school account that has a mailbox associated with it, you will see that it will also send an email. The email will be like this. It will say security notification. This is an automated email sent by Microsoft. Your direct report, account name. Here the account name and the UPN of that person will be. So your direct report, this and this user has been disabled in Azure AD because there was a security incident. Can you please notify the user and work with him to reach out to support? So notify the user, work with the user, identify why it happened, and then here's the direct reportee detail, display name, surname, job title. Now, all of this information will only come when it has been fed into the Azure AD. If this information is not fed, then nothing will come, right? The fields will be blank. And that is why it is important for an Azure AD admin while creating the user to fill in all the properties of the user, because those properties will come here. And this will be the subject line. And here it says to user principal name. And this user principal name is the user principal name of the manager. So the email will be sent to the manager directly with this subject line, with this content. And here you can see the importance of the email. So this is what it is going to do. That's it. And if it is false, let's say the user does not have a manager, then click on add comment to incident. The next option, yeah, this one, then this will happen. So if the user does not have manager, this email will go. This email, I'm saying in the incident, this will be the comment in the incident automatically. So when the incident gets generated, there will be a comment in the incident. comment will say the comment ID will be the incident ID, and the comment will say that this user with this UPN was disabled in Azure AD via playbook name has not been notified since it is not found for this user. So basically, there will be a comment in the incident that will say that the user manager will not be notified because it is not found in the Azure AD. So this is my playbook. Now save this playbook. Save it. Okay, just go up. It seems that you clicked somewhere. Pause. Go up. Go up. Go up. Okay, now scroll it down. Scroll it down. So things are okay. Save it again. It should work. Some concatenations. Okay, concatenations. Scroll it up. Go to the manager field. Get user detail. Yep, here. And remove the concatenation. Type the account name here also. Great. Now save it. Scroll it down. So when we click on any of the workflow, then we'll need to complete the information for that workflow. Pause. Here concatenation. Remove that concatenation. Now remove it. That's it. Select save it. Okay, this is not getting saved. Scroll it down. Where else we have concatenation to user principal name, please.
Is it because this ID does not have a mailbox?
That is why. So we just remove this workflow. We will not use this workflow. We'll stick to the user disabled till the point user disabled. So send email option, you need to delete it. So this point is okay. Scroll it down. Scroll it down. Now here, this point you can delete. Scroll it up and then you see those three dots. Just delete this point. We don't need till this level. Go up. Delete it. We only need the first three steps in the logic app.
You have to delete everything one by one?
No. So I'll tell you the easiest method. Just discard this and come back to the logic app designer once again. Discard it. Come back to the logic app designer once again for this logic app. Okay, now go to for each, the third tab, and here disable the user. That's it. Click on disable user so that you can initiate the connection. Remove the concatenation here. Type the account name. That's it. Scroll it down. See if you have a connection. Change the connection. Yep, this one. Verify the connection is there. Great. Now save it. You don't need to go down because if you go down, add more action, then it will fail because you don't have ID, you don't have manager information configured in Azure. Just save it at this point. So it is saving the logic app now. Yes, somebody is facing an issue. Okay, now the logic app is saved. Let's go to the logic app designer once again, and let's make sure that it is saved. All the information is saved. Okay, great. So our logic app is saved. We are done. We have provided the workflow that pick up the incident from Microsoft Sentinel. Inside the incident, you will see an identity. For that identity, click on the account. Inside the incident, you will see entities. Look for account entity, and from the account entity, pick up the account name. Now, let's say there are 20 users who tried to, simulate brute force attack on Azure. Then there will be one incident because we are grouping alerts into incidents. But inside the incident, you will see all the 20 users. So it will pick up for each. It will use a for loop. For each user, it will look for the account name and it will keep disabling that account. That's what this is going to do. Okay. So we are done with the logic app. Now what we need to do, we'll need to go back to the analytics rule and simulate the and rerun the analytics rule. Okay. So in the analytics rule, now first of all, see query result. We need to validate whether we have started receiving the logs for the simulation that we did a moment ago. Last 30 minutes. No, the log has not come. No worries, we can check it. First, see whether there is a log in the Azure AD. So go to the sign-in logs in Azure AD. Sign-in logs, yeah, and see whether those failure logs are there in the logs are here or not. Okay, do we have failure log? Just stay here. Yeah, there's a failure log. Location. There has to be two locations, one from India, one for Australia. Okay, this is from India. Look for other also. If there is one for the one that Quinton did. So they are all from Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Scroll it down. There is none from Australia.
I did at least 5 or 6.
Yep, refresh this page. No, not last 7 days. I'm saying we just need that log coming from here because see these logs are the sources for Microsoft Sentinel. If logs are not here, then definitely Sentinel query will not return anything. Okay, so probably what happens sometimes there could be a delay for sign-in logs to come. So since there is a delay, we'll go back to the analytics rule and we'll use the incident that got generated last time. Okay, no worries. So the result is not coming. Can you refresh the screen and see if result is coming now? Okay. No, it is not coming. Type last 1 hour. That's okay. It will come in some time. That's okay. Close this. Close this. Okay. Now let's go. Let's scroll it down. Let's go to the schedule and select the schedule as last 14 days. So that at least it will pick up the incident that got generated last 14 days. Last 14 days. Days instead of hours. 14. Great. Let's go to the next incident settings. Next step, automated response. Now this is where we will need to create the automated response. So let's create the automated response. Let's create an automation rule. Type the automation rule as block Azure AD user. Okay, you cannot use space in. Okay, you can use space here. Great, scroll it down. And let's put all the actions so that you can see it yourself. Change the status. No, not run playbook. Playbook will be the last. Not, yeah. So first it will change the status of the incident as active. Second, it will change the severity of the incident as medium. Third, it will assign the owner to the incident. And then fourth, you can select a owner, anyone. I'm saying owner should not be the user who has simulated the attack. So it will assign the owner for the incident. And then fourth, it will run a playbook. Run playbook and select your playbook. Okay, here's the playbook.
It's graded out.
It says what? No. Okay, no Sentinel, no Microsoft Sentinel permission. It says.
Okay, I think I'll have to log in with that particular account. Is it this one?
with this, with which account you will need to log in with an account. You need to log in with an account that has admin permissions on Sentinel. Which is this account? Is this your main account, right?
Yes, yes.
So this has permission on Sentinel, right?
Yeah,
Says
it has.
Sentinel permission. Go back to the playbook. This usually doesn't come like this. Go back to the playbook and go to the API connection. Typically, we don't need to configure the API. Select the second option now. Click on Edit API connection. Okay. This connection can only be used by a managed identity. That's what I'm saying. So it is not needed. It is automatically done all by itself. Okay, go back to the previous screen now. Do one thing. On the Logic app, go to the Logic app. Go back to the Logic app screen for a moment and go to the Logic app designer. And here we can give the connection. Usually it is not needed, it automatically comes, synchronizes, but even if it doesn't come, we can give here Microsoft Sentinel incident. Go to Sentinel incident and here give the connection. Change connection and select add new. Sign in. Now select the user which has the global admin permission, which has the global admin permission. Okay, here you need to not this user. This user is global admin permission on Azure AD. But does this user also have contributor permission on the subscription? Because now you need a connection which has permission on Sentinel. So Sentinel is part of subscription. So you need to choose a user which has contributor access on Sentinel.
So then I'll use this one only.
Use this one. That's okay. Okay. So user is selected. Great. Now go back. It should work. So you need to refresh it now. It will not work on the same window. Directly go to automated response to validate whether that part is working first. Just type anything in the root. Scroll down. Directly add an action for the playbook. Playbook. No. First validate.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. No. That user. Select the same user. The other user, which you will use to disable, you will need to select the same user and grant that user contributor access on the subscription. Select the same user first. Yeah. So remember one thing, guys, we never ever use account admin credentials to configure anything. Why this is coming? Because we are using an account admin credential. This is an account admin with which Visual is logged in. That is why these issues are coming. We always use a contributor or an owner, user identity to perform all of this. Great, change connection. So you have this configured. Now this user also need credentials. So do one thing, go to subscription and give this user contributor access on the subscription also. Yep, this is the subscription. Just click on subscription. Subscription name, access control, grant access to this resource at the bottom. Yep, add role assignment. Select the user. And say select the role, privileged admin role, the other tab, not the job function role, the other tab. And select contributor. Contributor role. Next. Give user, select the user now.
So if I grant access to this particular user, I'll have to sign in with this user, right?
No, that's not needed.
Okay.
You just need to grant access. Save it, review plus assign.
This is done.
Done. Now refresh it. And it is the connection is connected to the same user, right?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Shall
Now
shall I go back to automation now?
Yeah, you go back to automation, it should work. And so this is nothing but synchronization which is happening here. Because of synchronization, it is not working. Just give me a moment. Let me read that first. Let me read that error. It says only playbooks configured for incident trigger when the playbook appears unavailable. Please Microsoft Sentinel does not have explicitly permission to run it. Manage playbook permission. Click on manage playbook permission. Okay. Choose the resource group that contains the playbook. Choose the resource group that contains the permission and apply, get the permission. Adding permissions. Okay. This automatically comes. I'm saying this was just the synchronization issue. It never happens, but if it happens, then this is what you need to do. Okay. All right. Now click on apply. Select this playbook. Now you can also select other actions. That's it. Apply it. Now go back to the set rule logic and see the query result if it is returning the result. Okay, great. Now it is coming. See, we are getting two IPs, one from Australia, one from India, which means this will create an incident for sure. So just close it. And now you just need to go to scroll it down and the time frame. Now it is 1 hour is okay because this activity exactly was done an hour before. Just go to the incident settings. Next, 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 and then create it. Review and create. Okay. So what will happen as soon as you will save this analytics rule, it will run. It will look if there was any failed logon attempt, brute force attack on the portal in the last 1 hour, and it will create an incident. As part of the incident, click on save. As part of the incident, the automation rule will trigger and the actions inside the automation rule will get executed. So let's see if that happens. What it says, partially saved something.
Yeah, it said fail to save automation rule.
Block hash. What happened? Go to automation rule. That worked fine, right? You were able to apply.
Yeah.
Now click on save once again. I don't know why it's coming. It says it's working. It's just the synchronization. Just validate it once again. Now save it. Now the analytics rule is not getting saved. Data was not saved. Okay, refresh it. Refresh it. It's just the synchronization and nothing else. And do it all over again. Okay. Set rule logic. Don't run the query. You know that it will run. Incident setting. First, make sure that it is 1 hour there. Go back. Yeah, okay, great. Now let's go back and put the automation rule. I don't know why it keeps coming like this. Okay, go back.
Should I log in with the other user and then try?
It's not needed. Go back to the logic app once again. And here change the connection once again for the incident. Yep, change this connection back to the previous one. The first one on the top, Sentinel Azure AD incident. Okay, now go back and save it. I'm saying, did you change the connection? You didn't get the save option connected to. That's okay. It is connected. It is connected. That's okay. Now go back and save the rule. I don't know why that automation rule is not getting saved because validation is getting passed. So this is just happening now. Failed to save analytics rule, brute force conflict, newer instance of rule. Okay, is this happening with all the participants or only with Major? Quentin, are you trying? Is it happening with you also?
The same error.
No, I didn't try that part because I don't have the incident yet coming to my queue.
Oh, okay. Incident is not coming. Then you can, if the incident was generated in the past, then change the time frame. Instead of 1 hour, let's make it last
No.
2 hours.
I don't have any incidents on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have, but even if you don't have any incident, at least let's try to save this to see if you're getting the same issue with the analytics tool not getting saved.
Let me try.
Yeah, Triveni, did you also get the same error?
Yes. I'm also getting the same error.
I don't know. Let me take the control here for a moment, guys, because this is just the synchronization. It should work. I'll show you. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at the logic app that I have. This is the logic app. Block Azure AD user incident Raghuveer. And see, I have the same configuration here in this logic app. If I go to the logic app designer, See, I have the same 3 steps. In the first step, the connection is made to the logic app itself. I'm saying the name of the logic app, which is block Azure AD incident user, which is same for you. In the second step, we've selected the entity and the connection is made to the same logic app. And in the third step, I have selected accounts. And then on update user, disable user, I have selected account name and the connection is made to this user account. API connection at Raghuveer, this user account, because this user account is also connected, this user account, and rest I don't have any condition added. This user account API connection in Raghuveer is also added here in the API connection. So you should have the same user account added over here. You can see Azure AD block AD user. On this API connection, it is the same user account. So if I go to edit API connection, if I'm saying it doesn't show you, but you can see the same user. I'm using the same user here also. With the same user, I have configured it also. I'll reconfigure it. I'll show you. See, I'm using the same user. And I have not configured the Microsoft Sentinel connection. It is not needed because you are directly using the workbook in the Sentinel console. So it says the connection can only be used with a managed identity. And if you look at the overview, the connection status for this should be ready. And that is the case with all of you. It is ready for all of you. It is not connected. But for the first one, it is connected. It is connected for the first one. This Azure AD 8, this automatically gets created when you get a connection. So you will all have a fourth API with some numeral Azure AD hyphen some numeral. Is this the case with you, Majul, Triveni? Is it the same with you also?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so which means this configuration is okay. Your logic app is okay. So if you're not able to save the analytics rule, it is nothing but the synchronization. It should automatically work in some time because I have also done the same thing. This is the same process. There's nothing. Now I'll show you Azure portal brute force attack. Edit.
Raghuveer, I tried it with the Mission test account and it worked this time.
It worked this time. Then it was the other statement that I gave you that we should not use account admin to perform any activity on Azure portal because you were logged in using the account admin. Account admin is the account that with which we sign up for Azure. So you sign up with that ID mijonet@outlook.com. Maybe it was happening because of it. So here you can see I have also used the same automated response. Same playbook is here. Okay, if it is working for you, can you share your screen once again? So probably what I will suggest, Quentin and Triveni, go ahead and use the other account with which you are going to disable the user. Configure this playbook with that account, if that is the case. Okay, now this is configured. Great. So incident is created in the portal. Now, can you first check whether the automation rule triggered, which basically means whether the status of the incident got changed, an owner got assigned, all of that.
Yes.
Okay. Click on the incident. I'm saying go to the incidents tab and see whether an incident is created, first of all. Great. An incident is created. Look for the time of the incident. This is 9:59 AM, which is right. So your incident got created. The one on the top is the one on the top. So incident got created. However, that automation rule did not trigger properly, right? Let's go to the account. Now, let's go to the account and see, let's go to the Active Directory and see whether the user account got disabled or not. No, not measure test. I'm saying you just go to the Active Directory and see whether the user account got disabled. With which user did you simulate the attack? This, okay, just click on this user, see if this user got disabled. Great. The automation worked perfectly fine. The account got disabled. You can see account got disabled. Now you can also go to sign-in logs and you will see that Logic Apps disabled this account. Not here. This is for this user. Go to the main users tab. Go back, main users tab. Now go to audit logs, not sign-in logs, audit logs. And in the audit log, you will see that this account is disabled. Refresh it. Okay. There is no audit log in the last. So audit log is not generated, but this account got disabled because of this Logic app. Now, if you want to see whether it ran successfully or not, refresh it. It should come basically. So it is actually taking in your case to refresh the refresh the audit logs. Audit logs are taking time to come, but that's okay. It is taking time for audit logs to get generated. That's okay. You want to check whether the Logic app disabled it or not. I'll show you. Go to the Logic app. You will see that in the Logic app itself. Go to the Logic app. Yep. And here you will see that it ran successfully. Over here, scroll it down. Go to the trigger history because Logic app got triggered. See, scroll it down. You will see the trigger. No, but this trigger is okay. Run trigger for this Logic app. Run it. Run the trigger. I'm saying when you click on run, you see another run option. Yep, click on that. Okay. Now go to the run history. Click on this run history. It says succeeded. Now you will see it here. Click on succeeded and you will see that the Logic app ran successfully. See, it has all the green checks, which means it was able to disable the user. Now what you can do, there is another method of doing it. Go ahead and enable the user and come back and run it once again. You will see the user will get disabled once again. Enable the user. Yep. Save it. So your user is enabled. Now go back to the Logic app and run it, and then you will see the user will get disabled once again. You can see resubmit also.
Oh.
Resubmit. That's it. See, it is running the Logic app once again. Now the Logic app will run. Go back to the run details. You can see, okay, go back. I said this shows you the how it ran. Go back and run history once again. Refresh the run history. You will see 2 runs now. Yep. Click on the one on the top, 10.5, and see whether it got successful or not. See, it got successful. Go back to the user. User is disabled. Refresh. It says error retrieving data. Okay, now stay here. It will now go back to the Sentinel log analytics and say go back to the analytics room and delete all of these incidents. I'll show you how to do it from scratch so that you will understand, so that other participants do not get confused. Delete all the incidents. Select all the incidents from the top where it says from the top, select all of them and delete them. Okay, all right, great. Now guys, all of you, please look at the screen. We will do it again. So right now there is not even a single incident in the portal, 0 incident. Now go back to the analytics room. And on the other screen, let's look at the status of the user. What is the status of the user? Refresh the screen also. What is the status of the user?
Enabled.
Enabled. Great, the user is enabled. Okay, now go back to the analytics room. And what we are going to do, we will rerun the analytics room, which will create an incident, edit. Now all of you see it here. So we are rerunning the analytics rule, set rule logic, scroll it down and look for 2 hours, last 2 hours. Instead of 1 hour, let's change some setting. Let's make it 2 hours. Go to the automation, next incident, automation, and validate your logic app is there, right? And just click on this app also and see what it is doing. Yep, click on this rule also. So this rule is running the logic app. This rule is changing the status and all of that. This rule is doing. Click on apply. Okay, now click on review and create. So as soon as we save this analytics rule, the query will run. It will look for the last 2 hours. It will generate 1 incident real quick. Go to the incident. It will generate 1 incident. Now refresh it. Okay. All right. The incident came and your rule ran perfectly fine. See, the owner has been changed. Status is active. Severity is medium. This confirms that my rule ran. Refresh the screen. The account is also disabled. Scroll it down. Just refresh it one more time. Okay, no problem. Go back to the rule once again. This is just taking time. See, the rule ran successfully here. Go back. See the go back to the incident. Yep. And go back to the refresh this page. See if it ran at 10:8 or 10:9. Okay, it ran and it failed. Over here it failed. Let's see why it failed. This time it failed. I want to see why it failed. Click on 2 seconds here. It says no dependent action succeeded, action failed. Click on this. Yep. Click on that error. I want to see what error came. Scroll it down. Okay, show more. Okay, see, the challenge is your portal is not refreshing. The user was already disabled. So it says account enabled false. You can see here. Why the rule failed? Because the account was already disabled. That was the reason rule failed. So on your portal, when you are refreshing the screen, it is actually not refreshing. Make sense?
But we did enable that account before running the query, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You are enabling the account on your screen. You are saying that the account is enabled, but in the backend it is still disabled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what this properties clearly says. See, this property clearly says that the account enabled is false. So you cannot disable a disabled account. That is why it failed. So in the backend, your account is already disabled. That user's account is already disabled actually. So that is why this. So understand the logic. The automation rule ran. That is why your incident severity changed. Account incident owner got assigned, right? Incident status got changed. And this logic app also ran. The logic app ran successfully, but failed at this stage because the account was already disabled. That is why logic app gives you the error that it's forbidden. The account is disabled. Now maybe sign out and sign back in. It is coming from the cache. I don't know, but this account is currently disabled. Or you want to check it, whether this account is enabled or disabled, log in using this account, and you will see that the account is disabled. Maybe you have multiple portals open because of this issue came all of a sudden, synchronization, but your settings are correct. It is working actually. Sign in. Yeah.
I'm just getting the password.
This is nothing but the synchronization, but your rule is running perfectly fine. It was able to change the severity. It was able to assign the owner. The only thing it could not disable the account because it found the account status as disabled itself. That is why that step did not run. Or what you can do probably, you can once again simulate an attack using some other user and wait for the time to log to come in, and then refresh the analytics rule. You will see it happening.
After entering the password, it's asking me for the multi-factor authentication. So I believe this is not disabled. That's why.
But this is nothing but the synchronization. Because of synchronization, this is happening. So probably you want to run this analytics rule once again and see the account. See the logic app is able to disable the account. First of all, close this. Why it is coming? Was it not getting saved?
This is the old one.
All right, so close this screen also. This happens when you have multiple screens opened. On this screen, go back, go to first go and see the status of the account. Azure user. Okay, this is enabled. Disable it and enable it once again. Disable it for a moment. Save it. Now enable it. Okay, this is enabled. Now on the same screen, go back to the analytics rule. Yeah, first delete that incident, the existing incident. Yeah, so we've removed. Now go to the analytics rule and save the analytics rule once again. Now make it 2 hours, so 1 hour instead of 1 hour. Okay. That's it. Directly save it now. You don't need to do anything. Just go next. Save it. And wait for it to save. See, this is where it is failing now. Now there's an error. Some conflict is there. It says workspace E tag does not exist. Data was not saved. Newer instance of rule. So there is some synchronization error you can see here with the rule. Save it once again. See if it is getting saved. Same error. sign out and sign back in. It is nothing but the synchronization. Okay, no incident is there. See, now it is saving. Okay, now wait, go to the incidents. You will see one incident. Here we got it. Look for the top incident, the one that got generated 1080. See the incident, see the rule is working, severity, status, all of that changed. Automation rule is working. Okay, now let's go to the user. Let's go to the incident. Let's first find if it is the same user in the incident. First of all, go to the incident and see for which user this incident is created. Click on the incident, investigate. Scroll it down. You will see an option. Select the incident. Incident is not selected. Check the box for the incident. Yeah, now investigate. At the bottom, you will see investigate option. View full details. Now see if that, that account is coming up. Close it. Click on the, yeah. Okay, scroll it down. See the entities. It's not even picking up the entity. Click on that. Yeah, now it will pick up the entities. Scroll it down. Similar incidents, high 3 brute force attack. I want to see whether it is picking up that entity or not. Details, click on incident details. Not here. Say close this. Yeah. Incident actions. No, not actions. There is an option that says details. Entities, sorry. Entities. Go to the second tab that says entities right after overview. Yeah, here. This is empty. So that is not capturing. Refresh it. Maybe you clicked on it very quickly as soon as the incident got generated. So that entity is not getting captured here in this incident. Click on this similar incident. Now that got generated on 27. So this entity is not getting captured. Now, if you go to the runbook, that is why this is not getting captured. Go to the logic app and see whether it ran successfully. See, it failed. It is failing because now it is not getting it. Click on this. Click on it, why it failed. Disable user. Forbidden. See, status code changed. This time the status code is changing 409, 403. See, no, this time it is not even getting the user. So no worries, guys. This is nothing but the synchronization. Your setting is correct. Let's not waste much time. I'll show on my screen. I have the same configuration. It is the same configuration that I have, or probably I'll quickly show you. So I'll show you from scratch real quick that this is how it works. So is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, I'll show on my screen real quick. So I'll go to Content Hub. Azure Active Directory, manage. Select the playbook, which is block Azure AD incident. Configuration. I'll create this playbook the way you have done it. I'm repeating the step real quick so that you will understand. And now I'll change the name. Final. So I'm putting this name final here. I'm enable the logging in the same workspace. Go to connections. I'll create it later on and click and continue to designer. All right, this got saved. Now you can see after it gets saved, I will go to API connection. I'll first configure this API connection, edit API connection, authorize. I'll use the same account, an account which has permissions on Azure AD. This is the account. So I've configured the connection. It says authorization was successful. I'll save it. This is saved. I'll click on it and I'll check the status. Yes, it is connected. I'll not touch the remaining two because I don't need them. Now I'll go to the Logic App Designer. And in the Logic App Designer, I'll not make any changes on the first, which is incident. On the second, on the third one, I will click on, I will validate that the account is selected. Under update user, disable user, I'll remove this and select account name. That's it. After I select account name, I'll change the connection here and I'll use the same connection. So I would rather click on, though the connection is already here, you can see API connection, but I'll show you that I'll use the same credential, which has the capability to disable the user once again. Okay, it is connected. You can see here, it shows connected. That's it. Nothing else that I'm doing. The same steps you also did, and I'll save it. Okay, some connections are not authorized. It is just this is connected to API change connection, but it's okay. Let's refresh it. Now something new has come up. So this connection is okay. Change connection. Now this will be 9. Every time you create a connection, it will keep on adding it. So this is okay. Connection is authorized. Save. Now something new is coming up. So I'll do this basically just to understand once this connection is created. Once this connection is created, there is nothing new which is happening. If I go back, I will see similar logic app here. This is the logic app you can see here. Logic app. This is the logic app that I created, and I only created last night just to validate. And if I go to the designer, you will see the same configuration here. See, same configuration for each update user. Account name is there and the connection is there, API connection. Same connection is there, and after that I'm not adding any condition because I don't want an email to be sent to manager. So this is the same configuration that I have in my logic app, and this logic app is part of the automation rule here. So here's the analytics rule. Edit. And you can see in this analytics rule, it is the same entity mapping is there. And query I'm running last 14 days. Next. Next. It is the same logic app here, which is here. Block Azure AD automation rule. So what I have done, I've created 3 automation rules. Or maybe I'll just remove everything from, no, I cannot remove it. You can see here, I have the same configuration. When I'm sending email, I'm sending it to this. And here's the logic app that I have enabled here in this analytics rule, which is this logic app you can see. And here's the task that I have also enabled. And these are the automation actions that I have enabled. Same configuration that I have. So I will save this rule. Now, before I save this rule, I want to show you that we have a couple of users. Since I have not simulated any attack, I will be depending on the previous incidents. So I have these users, Kishan Kumar, which is enabled. I have another user, Radha Kumari, which is also enabled. And I have one more user, test user 1, which is disabled. I'll enable this user. So 3 users, Kishan Kumar, enabled, Radha Kumari, enabled, and test user 1, enabled. 3 users are enabled. Now I'll go ahead and save this rule. Now what this rule will do, these 3 users that I've just shown you as enabled, they had been reported in the past to simulate brute force attack on Azure portal. And since I've selected in the query last 14 days, it will pick up all the events in the last 14 days and these users will come into the picture. And accordingly, it will generate incident. So before it generates incident, I'll also remove previous incidents from the portal. Okay, there is no incident in the last 24 hours, last 48 hours, no incident. Last 14 days, there are incident, but that's okay. I'm focused about last 24 hours. So there is no incident in the portal also. Now I'll go and save this rule. and I'll save this rule. So when I've saved this rule, it will run and it will create an incident. See, an incident is created with this rule. And as part of this incident, I'm expecting that logic app should work and should disable the users. That's what I am expecting. So I'll refresh the portal. And first of all, see, my automation rule worked well. When I did not refresh, the severity was high. Incident was not assigned to anybody. As soon as I refresh the portal, we're trying to do everything so quickly that Azure portal is not able to match our speed. So when I refresh the screen, you can see my incident severity has been changed, owner has been assigned, status is active, which means my first automation rule ran. That was my first automation rule. The second automation rule was to disable the users involved in this. So let me first see the few details of this incident first. So if I see the details here, if I go to the entity tab, I see all the entities, something that you were not seeing in your incident visual because you're doing it too fast, maybe some synchronization. So I see all the entities here. I see typically entities like test user, Kishan Kumar, Radha Kumari, Ravi Kumar, all of these entities I see here who are reported to perform brute force attack on this portal. Now focus on this test user for a moment. This test user is an admin user also. So since this is an admin user, its account will not be deleted. The logic app does not have the capability to disable an admin user. However, test user 1 is not an admin user. Its account will be disabled. So what it will do now I'll go back to the account Active Directory, refresh the Active Directory also, and I'll go to users and I'll see for Kishan Kumar. See, the account is disabled. I look for other user, Radha Kumari. The account is disabled. I look for another user, test user 1. The account is disabled. However, if I look for, so this test user was also reported to send brute force attack in last 14 days. This account will not be disabled because it's an admin user. Why it's an admin user? You can see here in the role assignments of test user, this test user has contributor access. This test user have contributor access on the automation rule also, on Sentinel Log Analytics workspace also. That's why it will not be disabled for the test user. However, Ravi Kumar was also there in the entity. See, Ravi Kumar is also disabled. So whatever user account were reported into, whatever entities were reported into in this incident, those all entities, those all have been disabled by my logic app. Now, if I go to the logic app, which is this logic app, it says failed. It says failed. I'll tell you why it says failed, because it involves one user account which it could not disable. That's the reason it says failed. So it says action failed, no dependent action succeeded. Now if I go to the user account, see this user account, test user 1, this worked fine. It says 2 seconds here. So this one perfectly worked fine. It says update user. This failed here because it could not disable. There are 6 entries you can see here. This is entry 1, which means for this user, it worked perfectly fine. This logic app. I go to the next entry. This is the second user. For this user, it failed. See, test user. It failed because this logic app does not have capability to disable an admin user. But if I go to the next user, which is my third user, it says green check. It worked. For Kishan Kumar, it worked. I'll go to the next. You can see this user, Raghuveer. This is also my admin user. So definitely it will fail for this admin user also. I'll go to the next, which is Ravi Kumar. Ravi Kumar, it worked. You can see green check. I'll go to the next, which is Radha Kumari. It worked second. So the reason you see fail, even if one of the activity fails, you will see a failure here. Then you will need to click on the failure and you will see, okay, in this incident, there were 6 users involved, and out of 6, 2 users were admin users. So Logic App does not have capability to disable an admin user, but all the normal users, Logic App disabled. So Logic App worked perfectly fine here in this use case. It was able to disable the accounts. It was able to perform all the activities in the automation rule which was there. And if I go back to the analytics rule, there was one more rule, which is send an email. So if I go to my email address, you will also see that I've received an email also here. See, here's the email. Hi admin team, a new incident created in Azure Sentinel. Please log in to check mode. This is the email that I've received 5 minutes ago at 10:32. And at 10:32 around, I've received this incident. See, 10:32, I received the incident. And at the same time, an email is also sent to me, because in the analytics rule, I also have one automation action, which is to send an email. So this ran perfectly fine. So those are the settings that you need to do. If it is not working in your case, it could be some synchronization, because I've just shown you from scratch here and it worked in my case. And it is able to delete, create incidents, change all the parameters based on the analytics rule, send email, and also in the incident, it has added a task also. So if I go to the incident here, if I click on the task here, see, there's a task also with the name sample task. If I click on the task, it says this is a sample task. So a task is also added in the incident. Now, if I go to the analytics rule, you will see all of it configured there. Azure portal brute force attack, edit. If I go to the automated response directly, you can see there are 3 automation tasks. The first automation task is changing the status. I can click here, edit. This automation task is changing the status, all of this, and it is running the playbook, which is email alert 76. And this playbook has actually sent me this email. So the entire automation rule worked successfully, this one. Then there was another automation rule, which was to disable user, which is connected to this Logic App, which also worked successfully. Then there was another automation rule, which was to create a task. And you can see the task name is sample task, and the body says this is a sample task. This also ran perfectly. And that is why in my incident, I'm able to see all of it. So this is absolutely working fine. You just need to, if it doesn't work in your case, just wait for some time, it should work. If it doesn't, then scrap everything and do it all over again, and you will see everything working. And it is the same configuration that I have. You can see sample task, and here's the stat in the sample task, which is this is a sample task. So makes sense. And if I run this rule once again, automation rule, then it will fade. See, I'm running the rule once again. I'm changing nothing, just running the rule once again. So the rule saved. It will create another incident now in the portal at 10:41. See, the incident is created now. This is another incident that it has just created. I'll refresh the portal for a moment. See, at 10:41, it has created another incident. This is the incident that it has created. And see, everything ran for this incident. The settings of the incident changed. In fact, I have received one more email here See, this is my one more email that I've just received 0 minutes ago as part of the automation rule. And if I go back to the logic app and refresh this page, see, this failed once again at 10:41. It failed. If I click on failed once again, see, all of these actions are here. Update. And now you can see this is test user 1. So this is working once again. So basically, in your case, if it is not working, the only reason it is not working in your case because there could be some synchronization issue. So it is working once again. Everything is working as expected. So all you need to do, just start from scratch and it will work. All right. Let me show you one more time. So these are my users. Some of those users are disabled. Let me enable those users first. This is enabled. Let me enable this user also. Let me enable this user also. Let me enable this user also. All right. So now focus here, guys. Once again, now you can see I've got a couple of users in my Azure Active Directory, and the status of all the users is enabled. You can see all the users are enabled. I'll go to Logic app. I've removed all the previous Logic apps just to avoid the confusion and conflict in the portal. Now I only have two Logic app, which is AWS Email Alert and Email Alert, normal Email Alert, right? So these are the two Logic apps that I have. Now I'll show you from scratch that how this works. So I'll navigate to Microsoft Sentinel. Now focus here real quick. And here I'll go to Content Hub. Select Azure Active Directory, manage. Look for the Logic app, which is block Azure AD user incident. Configure it. Since I've removed everything, all the Logic apps in the Logic app from my portal, now everything will be configured from scratch. See, I've selected this. Now I'll create a playbook from it. Select the configuration the way we have done it. Connections I'll create later on. Review plus manage. And I'll create this Logic app. So this is I'm doing it from scratch so that I can show you. The reason it was not working for me earlier because of that synchronization, because there were multiple Logic app with the same logic. So I removed everything and now doing it all over from scratch. Okay, this got created. Block Azure AD user incident logic app got created. It will directly take me to the designer. But before I work with designer, I will create the API connections also. So I'll create first API connection with the Active Directory. And for this connection, I'll use an identity which has either user access administrator, security leader, or global admin access on Azure Active Directory. So I'm using this account. And here's the password for the account. The authorization was successful. I'll save it. It is successfully saved. The Microsoft Sentinel one, I don't need it because I will directly include the logic app into the Sentinel portal. So I don't need this. I'll directly go to the third one. And for third one, I'll also authorize. Though I don't have a user account with a mailbox, this user account does not have mailbox. But I'll just show you how to authorize because this is needed. So this one is also authorized. However, it will never ever send the email because it doesn't have a mailbox. But I've just done the authorization and the test connection failed. That's OK. So I'm done with the API. I just need to authorize the connection for the first and third. Second, I don't need. Then I'll go to the Logic App Designer. And in the Logic App Designer, all I need to do directly go to the third workflow, select update user. Here I need to select the account name instead of concatenation. And over here, I will also need to create the connection. And here I will need to provide an account that has the capability to disable the user, which means an account with global admin, security admin, or user admin permissions. So I'll change the connection and I'll create a new connection here. Now the portal is working a bit slow. So I use the same email address, same user account. The password. And I'll authorize. OK. So once this is done, it will automatically disappear. So the connection is made. And now I'll save this logic app. See, it will now get saved automatically because I have removed everything from previous references. See, it got saved. The reason we were not able to save it last time because there was a lot of junk, multiple logic apps with the same logic were there, and somehow there was a conflict. Since I've removed everything and started from scratch, it got saved. So this is running perfectly fine. This saved. Now, other thing that you need to understand is this. Read it here. It says that note if user is admin, this playbook doesn't have permission to block admin user. So if there is any admin user which is involved in simulating brute force attack, this playbook will not be able to disable that user. OK, this is where it clearly says that if it is able to disable the user, then this is the workflow for true. And if it is not, then this is the error message that will be added in the incident. OK, so this one got saved. Now I'll go to the analytics rule. And once again, I would like to show you that all of these users in my Azure Active Directory, they all are enabled. Their account is enabled. You can see all these users are enabled. Now I'll go to the analytics rule, select the analytics rule, edit it. And since I've removed all the previous references, you will see then that in the analytic rule, you will not have that automation rule. I'm using the same configuration, not making any changes. Now over here, you only have two automation rules. One is changing the status assigning owner, change severity, and the other is adding the task. Now here I will add another automation rule to block the user. So I'll select the automation rule as block AAD user. And I'll select the action as run playbook. And here I'll select my playbook that I've just created. Now that playbook is not refreshing, so I'll just refresh the portal for a moment. Next, next, next. See, it is now coming. So I'll put this rule, block AAD user, and select the playbook, which is block AAD user incident. And I'll put the order as, so you have 1 and 3 order, I'll put it basically 2. And I'll apply it. So I've added this playbook, which I've just created from scratch, and save this rule. Validation passed. I'm saving the rule. It will get saved without any trouble because no references from previous entries are there. We're starting from scratch. So the rule is saved. Now I'll go back to the Sentinel portal. I'm expecting an incident to be there. I've also removed all the previous incidents. See, an incident is there. The incident has already automation rule triggered. So the owner has been assigned, status has been changed, severity has been dropped to medium. And I can see all of these entities. I'll click on full details of the incident. And here I'll see all the entities which are involved here. These are all the entities in the incident. And all of these entities, Radha Kumari, Krishan Kumar, test, Ravi Kumar, test, user 1, all, and then this. So there are, if you see, there are 6 accounts, 2, 4, 6. There are 6 accounts here. Radha Kumari, Raghuveer, which is my admin account. I'm saying my admin account, Radha Kumari, Krishan Kumar, these are normal users. Test, this is also an admin user. Ravi Kumar, normal user, and test user 1. So there are 6 entities, 6 users are involved in this brute force attack, which has been part of this incident. Now in this incident, if we go to the task, I will also see one task here, which is part of the automation rule because it also creates a task. So task is here. Now I'll go back to my users here. I'll refresh the screen and I'm expecting out of those 6 users, 4 users to get disabled by the logic app. So I'll refresh the screen. And you can see 4 users are now disabled. These 4 users. See, all of these 4 users are disabled. So my logic app, my automation rule perfectly ran successfully. And I can see this information in the audit logs also. So I'll go to the audit log. And you can see the audit log ran at 11:13, which is user management update user successful. So the audit log ran for all of these users. You can see here for 4 users it ran. So look, these 4 entries. I'm say starting from here 11:13, disable account, Ravi Kumar got disabled, Radha Kumari got disabled, right? So these 2 accounts got disabled. If I refresh, I'll see the entries for the remaining 2 accounts also real quick. So you can see now the entry for Krishan Kumar is also here. So disable account, disable account, disable account. So all of these 4 accounts are disabled now. You can see Ravi Kumar, test user 1, Radha Kumari, and Krishan Kumar. All of these 4 accounts got disabled. And who disabled these accounts? You can see initiated by actor, which is Azure Logic App. So Azure Logic App disabled all of these 4 accounts. Now, if I go to the Logic App, I will see this incident. So this is my Logic App. And if I go to the trigger, I will see a trigger here. which got triggered, which is 11:13. This is the trigger. If I go to the run history, I can see that this ran at 11:13 for the first time. And if I click on the details, I will see that out of 6 accounts, it was able to disable 4. And the 2 accounts, since they were admin accounts, it could not disable it. So here's the entry, show 1 of 6. You can see here that it was not able to disable this account. I'm saying you can see raw input here. Next failed. It was able to disable this account. So you will see the same information over here. So 4 accounts it was able to disable, 2 accounts it was not able to disable. Why it was not able to disable those 2 accounts? Because they were admin accounts. So it was not able to disable the admin accounts. You can see test user 1, it was able to disable. Green check. Second, this user, it was not able to disable. Test user because it's an admin account. Third, it's also an admin account. I'm saying this, it was able to disable. 1 second, Kishan Kumar. Next, it was able to disable this account, Ravi Kumar also. It was also able to disable Radha Kumari. Then there is one more account that it will not be able to disable, which is this, which is Raghuveer, which is the admin account. So all the admin accounts it was not able to disable, and why it not able to disable, it clearly says it has insufficient privilege to complete the operation because it does not have capability to disable the admin account. So it ran perfectly fine. Makes sense now, Mejun?
Yes, Ravi.
All right, so the entire description got recorded after we resumed from break. You can refer to this specific portion of the recording if you're stuck somewhere while creating it. What I suggest to all the participants, let's remove everything and start from scratch. It will perfectly work fine the way it has worked for me. I've just shown you. Because when you have multiple entries of the same service conflicting with one another, you can expect to see all of those errors one after another, and you tend to believe that you're doing something wrong, which is not the case. It is nothing but the synchronization. So either you start from scratch or you leave things running as it is and wait for some time. Since I started from scratch, I was able to see Logic App getting created without any trouble. It was saved without any trouble. I was able to add the Logic App to the analytics rule. I was able to run the Logic App. The automation rule triggered successfully. Incident got created. All the identities except the admin identities got disabled. The Logic App shows the information, and in these audit logs also everything was reflecting. It all worked perfectly fine because I removed all the traces from past and I started from scratch. So sometimes when you don't see things happening, it is because of the browser cache. It is because of the synchronization error on the portal. The reason I did not like it, the reason I felt bad, because this is something that I've done a number of times and it was not working on a recorded session. Now I'm feeling happy that it worked on a recorded session. So refer to this portion of recording after lunch between 11 to 11:90. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next topic now. So this is all about automation. As I said, if you need more information on automation, there are multiple automation probabilities. I have shown you all the options which are there, that you can create 6 actions, change the severity, change the owner of the incident, send an email, add a task, add a tag, and add a playbook. These are the 6 automation options which are available, and you can choose all of them. The best practice is to create one automation rule and select all the automation options in the same rule instead of creating multiple automation rules for each action. So that's my best practice. This completes the remediate part or SOAR part of Sentinel. Now let's understand some more administrative tasks. Okay, so we are done with this. Now we'll continue with some additional tasks. which is more on the data protection. So when I say data protection, I know that I'm dealing with Microsoft Sentinel, and Microsoft Sentinel has access to log data, and log data may contain critical, or let's say PII, which is personal identifiable information. So how do I protect it? How do I protect my data from Microsoft, in Microsoft Sentinel? So if you want to protect the data, you need to understand the building blocks of it, that where exactly the data is getting stored. You need to understand this. If you know all the storage repositories, you will be able to protect your data. Now, you may say that Microsoft Sentinel is a SaaS service. It is fully managed by Microsoft. So why should I bother about data protection? You should bother about data protection because Microsoft Sentinel, no doubt, is a SaaS service. It is fully managed by Microsoft. They will do everything to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity of your data. They'll do everything possible. However, in some businesses, in some industries where you have audit requirements, the audit requirement says that you should use your own data protection mechanism. You should not depend on your cloud service provider. So basically, organization must use their own data protection mechanism, data protection strategy, and data protection strategy is all about encryption. So we basically encrypt the data. Now we encrypt the data. When I say data, I'm talking about file or table. And we encrypt the repository also, which contains the data. This is about encryption. So you are encrypting the actual file and table. In Sentinel terminology, it is a table, because you know that all the logs are stored into a table. So you basically encrypt the table, and you also encrypt the repository where the table is stored. Now, what is my repository where the table is stored? That is my workspace. So my LA workspace is my repository. That is my repository. So in my LA log analytics workspace, all the tables are getting stored, and inside the tables, my log events or log data is getting stored. Which means if I want to protect my data for Sentinel, I will need to encrypt this. I will need to encrypt these two things. However, you also need to understand that Microsoft by default uses platform managed keys to encrypt the data or repository or storage service. It uses platform managed keys, which in short is known as PMKs. PMK. That is what Microsoft by default uses for data protection. So when you are creating a log analytics workspace, Microsoft is by default protecting this log analytics workspace using its own platform managed keys. Now the risk to platform managed keys is that since the encryption keys are managed by Microsoft, there is a probability of Microsoft having access to my data, log data. So since it is their encryption keys, they can always decrypt and they can have access to my data. Though Microsoft will not do that ever. Microsoft has an agreement with you, but Microsoft can if they want. And I want to remove this probability. So what I will do instead, a customer is recommended to use its own encryption keys. So you're recommended to use your own encryption keys. And how do you use your encryption keys? There's a service in Azure with the name Azure Key Vault. You need to provision this service, and inside this service, you can create encryption keys. The encryption keys that you will create will be known as CMK, which is customer managed keys. You can create encryption keys or you can import encryption keys also. For example, if you have a security module solution, which is a hardware solution using which you can create encryption keys. Typically, we use that in on-premises. So if you have a hardware security module HSM, then you can create security encryption keys in the HSM, and you can import those security keys into your key vault, and then it will also make it customer managed keys. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that instead of using default encryption method that Microsoft provides to be 100% sure about the protection of your data in Microsoft Cloud, you should always use your own encryption keys. And for using your own encryption keys, you will need to provision this service with the name Azure Key Vault. In this service, you have two options to create encryption keys in the Key Vault itself, or import encryption keys from on-premises if you have a hardware security module. Once you have your own keys, then you can use, after you have created customer managed keys, use CMKs, customer managed keys, to encrypt the LA workspace. And that way, you will be able to ensure that all the log data which is ingested into this log analytics workspace is encrypted, and nobody other than yourself has the capability to decrypt the data. That is the benefit of using customer managed keys. Now, there is a documentation which basically gives you step-by-step process to generate the customer managed keys and then use those customer managed keys to encrypt the workspace. Now, how do we encrypt the work? Where do we have the option? The option we have here. So if I go to the portal, if I go to log analytics workspace, this is the log analytics workspace which is connected to Sentinel, which is getting all the data. I'm saying all the log data ingested. On this log analytics workspace, I don't have an option. I actually don't have an option to look at the encryption, because if you remember, I told you that Microsoft is deprecating log analytics workspace on August 31st, 2024, and it has already started moving everything to Azure Monitor. So you will need to go to Azure Monitor service, and in the Azure Monitor service, you have an option to use Key Vault over here. So you will click on Key Vault here, and here you will select your subscription, which is you can select all. You can select your Key Vault, and you will be able to encrypt this Azure Monitor service, which is using the workspace in the backend, because this Azure Monitor is using the same log analytics workspace. If you want to see that what is the workspace of this Azure Monitor, you can directly click on okay, they've removed that option from here, but that's okay. Even if you click on logs, you will see the workspace which it is using. You can see it is using Sentinel log workspace. So this Azure monitor is using Sentinel Law workspace, and Sentinel Law is my log analytics workspace connected to the Microsoft Sentinel. So I will basically need to encrypt using Key Vault here my Azure Monitor Log Analytics workspace, which is connected to Microsoft Sentinel. And that way, I will be able to ensure that nobody other than myself will have access to the data. So that is how I can ensure it. So this is what I need to do when I want to protect my data. And when I go to the Log Analytics workspace, here I will see tables also. These are all the tables which are created as part of the data sources or log sources that I have configured. These are all the tables. Here we see all the tables, audit log, all the tables which are there. When I encrypt the workspace, by default, all the tables will get encrypted automatically. So that is how I can ensure that the data that I have in Microsoft Sentinel is protected from external sources, and Microsoft also will not have access to the data. Other than yourself, nobody will have access to the data. Now, there is an article, as I said, that article has all the information, step-by-step process to configure it. So I'll share that article with you. Whenever you feel, you can also do it. I've seen a production environment, you must do it. So give me a moment. Just looking for that article. So here's the article. On this article, you will see how to set up Microsoft Sentinel customer managed keys. So this will provide you all the steps to configure it from scratch, how it works. This is what it is going to encrypt. So it says Microsoft Sentinel solution uses several storage resources for log collection and feature, including a log analytics workspace dedicated cluster. As part of Microsoft Sentinel CMK configuration, you must configure CMK settings. So this article will give you all the information that why do we need to do it? What are the considerations? Why should I be doing it? All of this information is here. However, there is a consideration, there is a prerequisite. The prerequisite is that you can only use customer managed key on a log analytics workspace connected to the Sentinel that has a per day log volume is 500 GB per day commitment here. That's the prerequisite. So it will only work. You can only enable CMKs on that workspace. So probably you may not have this workspace at your customer, but if this is the workspace 500 GB data ingestion per day, then you should definitely go for CMKs. So the workspace should have 500 GB data ingestion per day commitment here. And then you can configure a CMK within Azure Monitor. It says don't onboard the workspace to Sentinel yet. So first you will need to, this is part of your implementation plan, that you will onboard, before you onboard the workspace into Sentinel, you will first use CMK on day one so that from day one, all the data that starts to get ingested into the workspace will be encrypted from day one. Because if you do this in the middle or after the product is implemented and released for production, then the day you will configure CMK, from that day onwards, from that moment onwards, all the new logs that will come into the Sentinel will get encrypted and the previous one will not. That will create a conflict. That is why it is suggested to do this configuration in the very beginning. And let's not do that, when you are already in production with Microsoft Sentinel. So this is a great configuration that you need to be aware of, which is very important because Sentinel is a security monitoring solution and its security is also important. So this is how you enable it. It shows you the process that first you need to create an Azure keyword and generate or import a key. Either you generate an encryption key or you import the encryption key. Then you need to enable CMK on your log analytics workspace, which is you need to go to monitor. It also requires you to create an Azure Cosmos DB resource provider because it creates all the keys that it uses to encrypt the workspace logs. It basically keeps that record in the Cosmos DB, which is a free service. You don't need to pay for it. And so the instance of Cosmos DB will be free of cost in this case. And then you will add an access policy for your keyword instance. So this is your 6-step process to basically enable a customer managed key for your Sentinel deployment in the very beginning. And all these steps are given here in detail. So you can just follow it and you should be able to do it. So this is about the protection of data for Microsoft Sentinel. Let me know if you have any questions on this.
Yes, Raghuveer.
Yeah.
So for this, you said that there is a commitment required for 500 GB per day, right?
Yep. That's what I will say. I'm only reading it today in the document because last time when I did it for one of the customer in April, it was not the requirement. As I said, this is part of your implementation plan. Before you onboard, I'm saying when you are done with workspace design considerations, when you have identified that, okay, I will have 2 workspaces, 5 workspaces. Once you're done with your design discussion, then you start to create the workspace. Now, before you enable log ingestion into the workspace, at that point in time, you will need to enable this CMK for the workspace. And after CMK is enabled, you will enable the log ingestion and onboard the workspace to Sentinel. That is the sequence of processes. Now, when I did it in April, there was no restriction. But since this article got updated on 13th of June, and in the prerequisite, it says that configure a log analytics dedicated cluster with at least 500 GB per day commitment tier. When multiple workspaces are linked to the same dedicated cluster, they share the same customer managed key. So what it tries to say that if you have one workspace, the per day commitment tier of that workspace should be 500 GB. If you have multiple workspaces onboarded to Sentinel, or if you have multiple workspaces configured for log ingestion, then the consolidated commitment of those workspaces should be at least 500 GB per day. That's what it says.
This is quite a huge requirement.
Yeah, huge. You're right. I'm saying this is huge in that, and probably Microsoft would want their small customers or small medium enterprises to continue using Microsoft platform managed keys, not use their own keys unless and until they have this much of commitment. So if it is a prerequisite, you already know we cannot bypass it. Otherwise, it will fail. When you reach to the same screen to, to basically encrypt the workspace, it will do the prerequisite check and it will fail, stating that the per day that the workspace is configured with pay-as-you-go commitment tier or workspace is configured with less than 500 GB commitment tier, and it will fail at that point in time. So you need to remember this.
Yeah. Okay.
And it also says that contact the Microsoft Sentinel product group. You must receive onboarding confirmation as part of completing the steps in this guide before you use the workspace. So probably once you are done with the first 2 steps, it says that you also need to connect with Microsoft product group. Probably they will enable something in the backend then only you will be able to proceed further with the next steps. So something has changed in the last 2 months with respect to this setting. However, if you are enabling Sentinel for any banking client or any public listed entity, this is one of the audit requirement that the client must use their own encryption keys. So if you are onboarding that client in Microsoft Sentinel, then you must have CMK configured for the client. And if client cannot afford to have a minimum of 500 GB per day commitment tier, then you must connect with Microsoft support and get a solution around it, because you cannot go without customer managed keys. If you do that, the client will violate the compliance. So if it's a public listed entity, it is needed to use customer managed key. If it's a banking client, health and insurance client, it is mandatory to use customer managed key. So for those clients, you will need to make sure that you connect with Microsoft and get the guidance that what we need to do here. Probably Microsoft will create an exception and enable this setting from the backend for you. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So this is on the security part. Okay. Give me a moment. Let me see what is the other topic on my TOC. All right, so we've seen how we create incident tasks using automation rules. We have seen how do we configure advanced security for playbooks. So we are good. Custom managed keys, okay. Okay. Next is, now there are two more important topics left, which is we are done with this. I'll also paste it for your reference. So my next topic is, these are the two important topics: working with multiple workspaces and Microsoft Sentinel for MSSPs. MSSP stands for Managed Security Service Provider. So these are my two topics which are left for this training that we will cover. Let's cover the initial and then we'll cover rest of them. So when it comes to working with multiple workspaces, now in our lab so far, we only had one workspace, right? We have just created one workspace, and what we were doing, we were ingesting all the logs into a single workspace, because ours was a lab environment. But in a production environment, there might be a use case, there might be a requirement to use multiple workspaces. And you already know in what scenarios. You've seen those workspace design discussion session last week. In that design discussion session, you had multiple use cases, which basically calls for multiple workspaces. For example, what were those use cases? The first use case was multiple Azure AD tenant. So you have multiple Azure AD tenants. Now tenants have isolation. They don't talk to each other. So you will need to create multiple workspaces, or you will have a customer having presence in multiple geos. If the customer has presence in multiple geographies, Then you will need to create and geographies like, let's say, India, Europe, US, and let's say ANZ, Australia, New Zealand, ANZ, continents. So if this is the case, when I say India, I'm saying APAC. So customer is in APAC, Europe, US, and ANZ. In this case, you cannot have one workspace ingesting data because Europe has GDPR. And if you create one workspace, let's say in India, and ingest all the data from Europe, USA, and ANZ, and you don't need to bother about GDPR for a moment, then there will be a lot of egress cost. Because if you have resources in Europe, USA, and ANZ, and if you deploy Azure Monitor Log Agent on them to send data to a workspace in India, then it will be egress cost. So you need to bother about egress cost also. So the point that I'm trying to make, that there could be scenarios wherein you will end up creating multiple workspaces. And if there are multiple workspaces, then how do you manage those workspaces in Sentinel? That is the question. Give me a moment. All right, so if that is the case, then how do I manage? I will say my both use cases that I'm putting here, these last two topics, they are interrelated. Because when I'm managing multiple workspaces, now I could be, as I said, I could be a customer having presence in multiple geographies, a large enterprise, or I could be an MSSP. Let's say DXC is an MSSP. I could be a managed security service provider, and I am actually managing security. I'm actually managing SOC for multiple customers across multiple geographies. This is the use case. So because of these three use cases, I need to understand that how we work with multiple workspaces in Sentinel and what does Sentinel means for a managed security service provider. So for that, I have a 5-step process. I'm saying, because this is a complex topic also, and you may not work on this topic, but since I have included this topic in my TOC, because I wanted to provide you at least at a high level overview of this topic, so that if it ever comes into your scenario, you would at least have some starting points, some starting inputs, and then based on the discussion with Microsoft and your customer, you can define a strategy. So to handle these scenarios, there are 5-step process. So the approach, there is an approach that you need to follow. Let's talk about that approach real quick, and then I'll explain the approach probably tomorrow. So my approach to handle this situation, and Yogesh, probably you might have already come across this situation. So let's understand the approach, because this is something that admin team deals with. It has absolutely nothing to do with operations. They will not be dealing with these subjects. Okay. So my approach is that I have a 5-step process. So my first step is consolidate workspace. So that's my first step, that consolidate workspace, consolidate as much as possible. When I say now this will have sub steps also. Let's first understand the 5 steps. So consolidate workspace. Second, work across multiple workspaces. So let's say when you consolidate, there were initially 20 workspaces, and when you followed the consolidation, you were able to consolidate 15. Now you end up having 5 workspaces in the end. So now you will need to know how to work across multiple workspaces. Then comes the automation part. Automate deployment and configuration across workspaces. Automation part, because see, this is all you are not doing in the middle. Consider yourself that you are in the beginning of a discussion with a customer. Either you are deploying Sentinel for the customer, and you know that the customer is a large enterprise. They have offices across multiple geographies, and you will end up designing a workspace architecture for the customer, which will comprise of multiple workspaces. That's your first use case. Second use case, you are in discussion with the customer, and customer wants you to manage security operations. So customer wants DXC to manage security operations, and now you are discussing that how do you want to onboard workspaces of the customer, or how do you want to, first of all, how do you want to onboard the customer? So that's the third phase, which is automate deployment and configuration across workspaces, so that you don't end up writing multiple analytics rule, multiple hunting rules, one for each workspace. You should need to know what is my process of using central identity, central workspace. Okay. Then my fourth option is use in case of multiple tenants. When customer has multiple tenants, which is use Azure Lighthouse to extend to workspaces across tenants. And my last step is, if I want this, integrate with a ticketing system. So these are my fifth step process, and this five-step process will have sub-steps also that I will probably discuss tomorrow. This five-step process will work for both working with multiple workspaces and working as a managed security service provider and handling multiple customer security operations. This is my approach. And as I said, all of this needs to be discussed, finalized before you get into the implementation. Because if you do anything of it when the solution is in production, then it will throw a lot of challenges, a lot of restrictions. So this is what we are going to discuss. And we will discuss it in both the context of working with multiple workspaces and how do you use Microsoft Sentinel as an MSSP. So now let's understand this scenario. So we have two scenarios. In fact, three scenarios basically. So my scenario one is a customer with multiple workspaces, but with a customer with a single Azure AD tenant with single multiple subscriptions with single or multiple workspaces. This is my first use case, and I'm talking about three use cases which will summarize any scenario that you will come across while deploying Sentinel, both as an MSSP or directly for a customer. So a customer with a single Azure AD tenant with single or multiple subscriptions with single or multiple workspaces. And also add one more scenario with presence in one or multiple geographies. This is my first use case. My second use case is the same customer. It is the same customer, but now the customer has multiple tenants, not a single tenant, a customer with multiple Azure AD tenants. And when there are multiple tenants, definitely there will be multiple subscriptions because customer will at least have one subscription in each tenant. So a customer with multiple Azure AD tenants, with multiple subscriptions, with multiple, now definitely there will not be single workspace, with multiple workspaces, with present in not one, in multiple geographies. This is my second use case. And my third use case is DXC as MSSP trying to onboard another customer to its service portfolio, to its SOC service portfolio. These are my three use cases. Yogesh, can you think of any other use case from your, from your perspective or from the engagements that you are currently involved in, that you did in the past, or that you are anticipating to get involved in future? Can you think of any other use case?
I have a use case in mind, but that is covered in the first one.
Okay, great.
I'll also think today. If I get any, then I'll inform.
Don't worry, there will not be any other use case because I've already included everything.
Yeah, correct.
The first two includes everything. There cannot be a third use case. So you will have a customer with single tenant, with single or multiple subscription, with single or multiple workspaces, with presence in single or multiple countries. Everything is included here. Or you will have a customer with multiple tenants, multiple workspaces, multiple subscriptions, multiple geographies. Done. Nothing is left here. And then the third, you are not a customer, you are actually a service provider, and you are trying to onboard a customer. That's the scenario. So these are the three scenarios. Now in this three scenario, the other use case that you need to consider is that whether, now think of DXC for a moment, that whether you want to manage SOC using customer's environment IP or manage SOC using your own environment and IP. When I say environment, I basically mean the subscription. So when I'm deploying Sentinel, I'm saying there are two use cases here, that DXC employees or DXC SOC team engineers or DXC SOC team is given access to customer's environment, which comprises of workspace, Sentinel. So you are given access to the customer environment, and in the customer environment, everything is configured, which means in the customer environment, they've got workspaces, they've got everything configured in the customer environment. That is my first scenario. The second scenario is that DXC team is supposed to ingest all the logs of customer data sources into its own LA workspace and manage the security operations. This is another scenario that you have in mind. So either you are given access to customer's environment and you are managing everything in customer's environment, or customers' data sources are ingesting logs into your workspace and you are managing the security operation for the customer. So these two use cases cover the scenarios. Now, the first scenario that you have here, this is the scenario. Now, the scenario that you have here is that in the first use case, where you are given access to customer's environment, which comprises of workspace and Sentinel, it means that you are using customer's environment and customer's IP. IP basically means intellectual property, because the work Sentinel belongs to the customer. So all the Sentinel configuration, which is analytics, rules, playbooks, hunting queries, as well as workbook, etc., they all belong to the customer. They're configured in their environment. You are just provided access to their environment and you are managing on their behalf, right? The second, wherein the IP belongs to you. So customer is only ingesting data into a workspace. So you have designated a workspace for the customer. You create a workspace for your customer and you ingest all the data into that workspace and then manage the security operations using your own IPs, which is using your own analytics rule, hunting queries, workbooks, solutions, and whatnot that you have configured in Sentinel. So this is the subsequent use cases that will come to your mind. Now, whatever I've written here, you will not be able to identify any third scenario, because this is the crux of what I have done in the last couple of years. And this is also the requirements that I currently work on, with customers across different industry verticals, across different geographies, and customers of all size, scale, and complexity. There is no third scenario. There is one more scenario that comes here, which is who you are. So you are an MSSP and both CSP. CSP basically means cloud service provider. So here CSP basically means that what will happen, DXC will purchase a CSP subscription. So DXC gets a CSP subscription from Microsoft. DXC becomes a CSP, Microsoft CSP, and let customers deploy their services in the subscription. DXC is built by Microsoft for monthly consumption, and DXC bills customer accordingly. This is another approach, which is CSP approach. So this is also one of the common approach for MSSPs. They become CSP. Now the benefit that they get is that if I use my subscription, so I'll have my tenant, CSP tenant. In that tenant, I'll create a subscription for the customer, and all the resources that the customer will provision in that subscription, they will be billed at monthly basis. Microsoft will bill me. For example, I'm a CSP. I'm a DXC CSP. Now I have 20 customers and they all are using my CSP subscription, CSP tenant. So that is the benefit. I will sell some.
Yeah, Raghuvir, your voice is breaking in between.
Okay. So this was about CSP, that you become a CSP and then you let customers use your subscription. Microsoft will bill you for the consumption and you bill their CSPs. Another use case that you may come across. So these are the use cases